I'm Marea Olafson, and I have been practicing pottery for the past 18 years. I trained first as a teacher, teaching art and history for the past 25, and after dabbling in numerous art mediums, stained glass, quilting, I decided that pottery was in my blood, and now I make functional art, mugs, bowls, baking dishes, and sell them in my highway store. In my pottery practice, one of my most favorite things to make is pottery bowls, because I just like how they cup in your hand and how you hold it and look at it. And so how I create, I pug clay. I actually reclaim clay in the spring and summer with my dad, and then I mix it with new clay, pug it out, and then I measure based on the size of bowl, because I find that a lot of people want to have the same size. So it's like, can you make this again? I don't remember what size that is. And so after I've pugged the clay, I cut it to the size, and I do 20 pieces at a time, and I set it up at my wheel. I have 20 bats, and I throw, usually listening to an audiobook or a podcast so that I don't even hear the phone, and throw 20 pieces, have them sit, let them dry to leather hard, and then I use my trimming wheel and trim them all up, and then let them dry, fire, glaze them, and fire them again. So bowls are my favorite things to throw. Mugs, I love using a pottery mug, but handles have become like I'm trying to love handles. After a good 8 years of really working on handles, I'm still working on loving handles, but once I've thrown the vessel for the mug, I will do usually like 40 or 60 mugs at a time, so that once I start working on the handles, I'm not like being pulled away, because it's like, you have to handle. Don't forget to love the handle. And then I pull them out of my kiln, and then they get taken out to my pottery store and or shipped out online. The reason that I reclaim my clay, besides just ordering boxes of clay, is because I started to find that I had buckets and buckets full of dry clay. And my father retired a couple years ago and he lives 2 miles away, and he decided, well, there's some money in this reclaiming clay. So we, 2 years ago, spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it. Bought a cement mixer, and he now has it down to a science. So I'll be throwing, and he's reclaiming in the spring and the summer. And so we just turn it into a beautiful slurry in the cement mixer, and then it lays out and dries on canvas outside. And then after it gets to the right consistency, bag brought in, and then my dad he pugs all of it, and then I will take the roll and split it into pieces and mix it in with good stuff. To pick my colors for my pottery, I love blue. Blue has been my color in life from like teeny tiny, and so I start off with blue. When I first started doing pottery, I had learned from my pottery teacher just dipping, and I love the overlay that happens, and it's just that magic. And so usually blue was something, and then I was at a show 12 years ago, and somebody said, oh, can you just do like a black and white? And I'm like, there's no blue in the black and white, so okay, well, I'll try it. And then when I opened up that first kiln, it was like, ooh, I like the contrast. So I like contrast, I like overlay, I like blues. So if I love the color, then I just keep making it. I find with the pottery store, I have people that drive from highway number 16, and they're getting a lot of, they're stopping and buying a couple pieces at a time, and so they're building up their collection, and then, oh, please don't get rid of this color. So I do stick with kind of what I've been doing all along, and now adding in a few more things just to experiment with, because also you get bored with the same old. And so 2 years ago, I ended up playing around with spirals, because I like to doodle with spirals. And I basically just took all of my colors and did base, and then it was okay, dip and spiral, and just to play around with it to see if I could come up with something different. So now I really like that, but I think I may have too big of a range, so I'm pulling back to what I usually do, and I'll come back to this, I'm sure. I operate an honor system pottery store, and it's based on before I started doing pottery, I was out visiting Denman Island out on the coast of BC, and we were touring pottery studios, and we went winding and came to this pottery store with nobody in it, and it was run on the honor system, and there was a bowl of cash that you can make change and credit card and put it in a locked bucket. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm buying just because it's the honor system, and here I'm gonna make change. And then after touring that studio, as well as a whole bunch of other pottery studios on the islands, it was like, yes, I need to learn how to do pottery. So I came back to Saskatchewan and did pottery in Saskatoon, pottery classes for 2 years. And when we moved back here in 2013, I'm like, okay, it's time to do the honor system on Highway 16, smack dab in the middle of Saskatchewan. And so for 8 years, I have run it where the door is open 24/7. People step in, look, shop, nobody's hanging over them. I did at the beginning, would always go out to meet them, and then I realized there was lots of them who were like, oh, you're here. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll let you just show up on the honor system. See ya. So now we just, and specifically with COVID, it's kind of like it was made for this time where just go in, shop, leave your money, e-transfer, and in 8 years, I've never had a problem. As I say to people when they ask if, well, has anyone stolen from you? And I'm like, well, would you? And they're like, no. So therefore, I don't have the problem. I also joke that the organized crime is still too busy with pot. They haven't got into pottery. Anyways, people are good, and it works out very well, because then I can focus on my pottery rather than trying to sell and be in the store and man the store. And I've had people stop from New York, Alaska, because this is one of the main highways through Saskatchewan. People stop, check it out. So some of the new things that I am wanting to work on is a friend of mine helped me paint a mural on the back of my store. And so it's very bright, kind of Norval Morrisseau-y inspired, and definitely different than my pottery, but I want to take that and do a collection that fits onto my pottery. So mugs that match the mural, and so that it's not only just on my store, but then people can buy it too and drink wonderful tea from it. So 2 years ago, I started doing a subscription box. And so one of my short-term goals is to be very consistent on being on time on shipping out my subscription boxes, because I do find when I was half-time, it'd be like, oh yeah, this is great. I got lots of orders going out. But then, oh, I have to go back to teaching. So short-term goal is strict the 15th of November, December, etc., getting those out. Long-term goals, I see getting into larger items, still doing the mugs, but like having a collection of, okay, these are the sizes I have, but now moving into some larger bowls, because I do have a personal project where I want to create the sink bowl for my bathroom reno. And so practice. And so I want a really big bowl in my sink, or for my sink. And so it's just, okay, when I pug the clay, I measure out 6 inches. Okay, throw 26 inches. And then, okay, throw 28 inches, and keep going so that I can get that super sink bowl. So that's a long-term goal. So there might be a whole lot of fruit bowls out in the store until I get to that sink size. So my advice for an emerging potter would be practice. The more you practice and the more you are crafting your art, the easier it gets, of course. But you'll find your style, but you have to keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And don't get rid of the first few pieces. Don't throw them out. Put them up on the shelf to remind you of where you've come from, because otherwise you might still think that you're not getting to where you want to get to. I have numerous people that reach out to me and ask for pottery classes. And I was pre-COVID having pottery classes in my studio, and I actually had one person who decided that they wanted to have their own wheel and kiln. And so first question, where do I get a wheel? And I'm like, look on garage sale sites, just keep looking for used, because of course I didn't want to put the financial into buying a brand new one when you're first starting out. And so there's lots of used products out there for kilns. Wheels are harder to come by, but you can experiment and try and find something. Online, there's different ways that you can even make wheels. I had a student, her dad made her a wheel for Christmas when she was 12. And so if it's your passion, you just have to go for it, because it just makes your soul sing. My favorite part out of the whole entire pottery process is actually sitting on the wheel and just slinging clay and just throwing and throwing and throwing. I've actually, in my practice, because I do 20 pieces at a time, trying to get it so that 20 pieces look all the same. And if I end up where one smaller, or I had to trim it off because it was being wonky, I'm like, oh, I didn't get the 20 exact, so then I have to, but it's that challenge to try and keep throwing. And yeah, my favorite thing is throwing and opening the kiln lid. Really the magic, even though I've been doing this for 18 years, but really my own practice solid for 10, when you open that kiln and you know that it's going to be exactly like what you put it in, but it's magical. I really like a large mug for drinking tea. I like that it is bigger than my hands. And so when I'm throwing these, this is about a 3-inch piece of clay that I've run through the pug mill. And I like to do the straight up cup, just because then your hand fits on it. and the taller the better. After throwing it, trim and put the foot on, and then when I'm doing the handles, I like to do 20-40 mugs at a time. Putting the handles on, it dries upside down, and I like the mugs where, as you can see here, that 2 colors with the overlay, so that if you're drinking from the right side, it's one color, and if you're drinking from the left side, it's another color. So I consciously am looking at, when I dip, that the handle gets the overlay on it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces to use. And usually when I'm in the midst of doing lots of pottery, there's a whole bunch of these mugs that are half full of tea around my studio, because I just keep picking up a new one and drinking from it.